Hey guys, welcome to the All Sports Pass Podcast North. I'm your host, X and welcome back to another video where today, welcome back to the SEC Schedule Predictions Series, where today I'm going to be covering the Georgia Bulldogs. Before we get into this video, keep in mind that these are my predictions. These are what I think will happen over the course of the season. And also, before we get into this video, leave a like, subscribe for more SEC Schedule predictions and more college football content. Without further ado, let's begin. So Georgia is coming into this season following a 13-1 2023 season. Of course, they were one game away, like they're in the SEC championship game. They had an upset loss to Alabama, who ended Georgia's chance for a three-peat as national champions. And I actually remember I made that video, and I will say this, that if you watch that video, there's an error in there. Like I was going off with the announcer said like a 46-game winning streak or something. I'm so sorry about that. But keep in mind, back then I was still learning and of course taking a few notes back then. And yeah, but hey, like I said, I'm sorry about that. But hey, as a podcaster, you will make mistakes. But however, it is what it is. Now for Georgia, like on that loss, they end up going to the Orange Bowl where they won 63-3 against Florida State. And I have to say, I actually remember watching that game, and I was like, man, this game is going to really sting for Florida State. But however, it is predicted that Georgia, like they're preseason's favorites to go to the national championship game again this year. But however, let's take a look at their notable returnees. I'm going to list a few of them here. Quarterback Carson Beck. He's a Heisman candidate. And last season, he threw for 24 touchdowns, had 6 interceptions, and had 3,941 throwing yards. Man, these are some crazy stats here. They also got Dominic Lovett back, and let's see his stats here from 2023. He had 54 receptions, 613 yards, and 4 touchdowns. And so he's going to be a big weapon for this Georgia offense. And then they have Michael Williams. And let's see here. He had 16 total tackles last season, and of course, that was 12 off his 2022 season. However, he's going to be good for the Georgia defensive line. Then you also get Small Mondon Jr. I don't know how you say his name. Sorry, it's Small. I don't know. If y'all who are Georgia fans and are going to leave a comment, please tell me how I pronounced his name. I'm so sorry if I got it wrong. But however, he has 68 total tackles last season. 2022 he had 76, so he's going to be good on the linebacker squad for Georgia. And finally, last one I'm going to put in here is Malachi Starks, who's their DB. Last season, 2022 he had 69 total tackles, and 2023 he had 52 total tackles. So he's going to also help reinforce the Georgia defense a little bit. And also, the fact about, this season is that for Georgia, they're trying to put that loss to Bama behind them. And they also want to get off on this season on a strong note. So let's see how I think they're going to do. All right, week 1 they're playing Clemson, and that game is being played in Atlanta. And what I do think is that Clemson, they surprised me this last year. Like, they haven't really been the Clemson that I've known, really. So what I do think is the fact that, is that Clemson, they're going to try everything. I think Clemson's going to try to do everything they can to get back on to where they were a few seasons prior. But however, I just think that, if they're going to have to, this is going to be a tough test for them because Clemson is going to be playing Georgia, as you can see by the schedule. And I do believe that just for Clemson, if they can, if Clemson's going to be able to pull it off, I do think that, I just think that, it's going to have to be, they're going to have to play their best game of the season during week 1. So I'm gonna say this, that I just think that's gonna be Georgia winning this one here. Then the next game, they're gonna be playing Tennessee Tech, and I'm gonna say this is an easy win for Georgia because Tennessee Tech is the weaker team here because like they're an FCS team. Now, however, we have seen FCS upsets in the past. Don't As you've heard me mention in other videos. Remember 2007, Appalachian State went all the way up to Michigan. Back when Michigan was ranked number 5, and they upset them by a score of 34-32. And because of that loss, Michigan dropped out of the top 25 polls. So anything can happen in college football. And yeah, but however, I just think that, for Tennessee Tech, I just think that it's going to be a bit interesting. I'm sorry. It would be a bit of a bigger test for them to come up there to Georgia to beat them. And I think it's going to be highly unlikely. So I'm gonna give this one to Georgia here. They're gonna start season out 2-0 right here. The next game, they're gonna be playing Kentucky, and I have to say, Kentucky is a team that you'll never know really how they'll do this season during the seasons. Now, last year they finished 7-6 overall and went 3-5 in the SEC. And I remember in 2022 they were able to keep it close with Georgia, only losing by a score of 10. And what I do think is that of course, I just think that Kentucky, however, I do think that Kentucky upsetting Georgia I just don't think it's going to happen. I just feel like that Kentucky is the weaker team here. Now, it is at Kentucky. They do have home advantage, but like I said, I just don't think Kentucky has the strength of the team to do it. So I'm going to go Georgia on this one. Then the next game, they're playing a team they hope to get revenge against, Alabama. If you remember, the back then Nick Saban led Alabama defeated Georgia in the SEC championship game, ending Georgia's hopes for a three-peat. And for Bama, they're under some new changes as well. But the most notable is that Nick Saban announced his retirement, and they did get Washington Huskies head coach Kalen DeBoer to come down to Alabama from Washington. And for DeBoer, he's got a good reputation. He did lead the Huskies to the national championship game where they ultimately lost to Michigan. But however, it's going to be interesting to see what DeBoer can do with this Alabama program, see what he can do to move the tide around, and if they could continue their success that they've had under Saban, because it's been years since Alabama has had a new coach, and for the Crimson Tide, there's going to be a bit of an adjustment. But however, I do think that some notable returnees here. They do have Jalen Milroe back. They have Robbie Ozitz back. They have Jaden Roberts back. Tim Kenyon III, and so many others that can really be some weapons to this Alabama team. However, what I do think is the fact that, heading into this season, if DeBoer can, get to a good start, and it's like I said in the Alabama video, it really depends on what Alabama can do under DeBoer, but I'm just going to say this. I just don't think Alabama's going to have the strength to beat Georgia. So I'm going to give this one to Georgia here. In the next game, they're playing Auburn. And I have to say, for Auburn, let me pull up their 2023 season. And what I do believe is that Auburn, honestly, they about upset Alabama last season before, I'm sorry, Alabama fans, the 4th and 31. And then, of course, they also got upset by an FCS team last season. There's where I said that. They also actually nearly upset Georgia last year, too. However, Georgia was able to hold on and win by a touchdown. However, I do think that if Georgia can do this, if Auburn could pull off the upset, it would be good. But however, I just simply don't think that. I just don't know if Auburn can do it, honestly. Now it's going to be interesting to see what these guys can do. Hugh Freeze is in his second season as head coach, and of course, in his first season they went 6-7 overall with a 3-5 SEC record, and those 3 SEC wins were against Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, and Arkansas. Now, of course, when you take a look at these teams haven't really been really strong in 2023. So we need to keep that in mind. However, unless Coach Freeze can help turn this team around, I just don't see Auburn doing it. So I'm going to give this one to Georgia. And then the next game, they're playing Mississippi State, and I have to say, Mississippi State. I'm just going to say this, like they're continuing to struggle a little bit, and what I do believe is that for Mississippi State, if they're gonna potentially pull off an upset, they're gonna have to get adjusted. Now, of course, I do believe that they with the new head coach Jeff Levy. Now they do have two transfers, quarterback Blake Shappen and tight end Cameron Ball, and it is gonna be interesting to see what they can do here. But however, I just think that of course they're gonna have to do everything they can to get into winning contention. But I just don't think it's gonna happen against Georgia. So I'm gonna give this one to Georgia. And next game, they're playing Texas, and I have to say here that I do believe that Texas. I'm actually gonna say this, that I remember scrolling on Instagram one day, and someone actually had Texas beating Georgia. However, here's my take on it. I do think that, of course, Texas, they're going to be a strong team coming into the SEC, but I don't think they're going to really do. But I really think that, of course, they're going to have to try to remember that this isn't the Big 12. This is the SEC. That the SEC's got some strong teams too. So it's really going to depend on, what we can expect from this game. But however, I do think that that if there's a team that can beat Georgia, I think it could be Texas, honestly. However, I just don't think that I just do not think that, in my opinion, that Texas can upset Georgia. But it should be a close game, honestly, in my opinion. So I might actually come back to this video here. Say if Texas were to upset them, I might actually come back to this video one day, and I might actually be like this: either Eagle, you idiot, or Eagle, you were right. But in all seriousness, though, I just think that even if this is a close game, I think Georgia's going to hold on and win this one. So I'm going to give this one to Georgia. Then next game, they're playing Florida, and I have to say, Florida came off last season following a 5-7 record. And they do have Graham Mertz back, but however, I just don't think that, of course, with some of these guys, they've lost so many good players that have transferred to other teams. And I do think this, that, of course, with this win, with a win against Georgia, honestly, I just hate to say it, it's not going to happen, in my opinion. Now, of course, we've seen upsets in college football. Anything can happen. However, I just don't think that this Florida team can do it. So I'm going to give this one to Georgia here. Then next game, they're playing at Ole Miss. And I have to say, in this video, this is actually the team that I said Ole Miss was going to lose to. And I will say this, that Ole Miss was a tough team last season. But, of course, they do get Walter Nolan on defense. They also get some more good players returning as well. I just do think that, of course, with these players is that I just feel like with Ole Miss, they can really play anybody and get the win. Let me reword that. They can really play anybody and beat the heck out of them. But it depends on the team, really. And I just think that now, of course, while they'll have the home advantage, I just don't know if, I just do not know if Ole Miss will be the team to beat Georgia. I just don't see it happening. So I'm going to give this one to Georgia here. Then next game, they're playing Tennessee, and this is also the team that I said Tennessee was going to lose to. I was going to say that I really think that, for Tennessee, that, Tennessee's coming into the season with some high hopes. They're trying everything they can. Of course, they have Nico Maliava now, and he's also got some good targets. He's got Brew McCoy, Squirrel Wright, and as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what else they can do here. And what I mean by this is the fact that, is that heading into the season, Tennessee came off a 9-3 season. And I'm sorry. Let me rewind that a little bit. I apologize. They came in a 9-4 season. Excuse me. Um, and I believe that that for Tennessee that they love what they saw of that game against Iowa, where I do think that of course that when they won against Iowa is that they show that Tennessee can be a team meant on business, and I do think that of course that Tennessee can win like multiple games, but I just simply think that Georgia's going to be a bit too much on now. However, when Georgia did get in, when Tennessee was ranked number one in the country in the playoff polls, they ended up playing Georgia. Of course, that game ended with Tennessee losing by a score of 27-13, and then and now but they were able to keep it close. And last season they only lost by a score of 38-10. Now Georgia, but of course, what I think for Tennessee is that if Tennessee can pull an upset like they did, like 2 years ago against Alabama, trust me, I would love to see it. Really, I would love to see it. But however, I just think it's highly unlikely it's going to happen. So yeah, so I'm going to give this one to Georgia here. All right, the next game they're playing UMass, and I'm going to say this that UMass is a bit of a weaker team, you could say. Now, I do believe that of course with these teams is that is that what I'm the sorry for UMass they're coming into this season following a 3-9 season, and I just don't think that of course unless they can pull an App State and unless they can be like the 2007 App State Mountaineers and pull an upset, I just don't think this is a winnable game for UMass. But like I said, anything can happen. So I'm going to give this one to Georgia here. And next game is against Georgia Tech, and I'm going to say this that I do believe that with Georgia Tech that the fact that they are playing Georgia and now they did beat the UCF in the Gasparilla Bowl is a bit of a good way to end off their season. They finished 7-6 and 5-3 in this. ACC, and then of course now I really believe that heading into here it's going to depend on what they can do. Now they only did lose to Georgia by a score of 8, but however I do think that of course it's gonna. I just think that it's gonna be a bit of a test for them to beat them now. However, if they're able to have a bit of success like they did last season against Georgia, it's going to be interesting to see how this game's going to go. However, I just do not think that Georgia Tech can pull it off. So I'm going to give this one to Georgia. And all right, that's going to do it for tonight's video. That's all I got for y'all tonight. If y'all like this video, leave a like and subscribe for more SEC schedule predictions. Keep in mind, these are my predictions. These are what I think will happen during the course of the season. And also, leave a comment down below about what you think. How you think Georgia's going to do this season? I'll try my best to respond to each and every one of you. And all right, so peace out and good luck, Bulldogs.